And welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint. Thank you for joining us tonight. With me is Leon Brathwaite. My apologies, Leon.
That's right.
Author and presenter on Knuckleheads of Liberty. We have John Cameron, author and host, co-host, longtime guest, whatever you want to call.
Massive talker.
We're not continuing on from the last time we were here, are we still, John?
No. I'm done picking on you.
I think I was picking on John the last time we were here. But, John, we're going to start right off with something that was right from your wheelhouse. Law enforcement has access, without court oversight, which is actually the big issue on this, to a database of more than 150 million money transfers between U.S. citizens or people in the United States and when they send money to over 20 countries. And this is not done through a government database. It's done through essentially a company Western Union set up as just
it's a non-profit, supposedly.
Yes, supposedly nonprofits are still non-profit. They search for profit, but it was a company set up because of a court case, if memory serves, if memory is correct, that the government of Arizona.
Yes, it was Arizona.
Had an agreement with Western Union to set up this nonprofit company to allegedly track. Started out with a small segment of money they're transferring, right? It was money laundering. Was it what? Not money laundering.
They were looking for money laundering because of drug trafficking.
The drug trafficking, right? Yes. And so now it's expanded where.
I'm shocked by that. The government program has expanded.
Could you imagine that?
One that was illegal to start with is even bigger. I'm shocked. Well, and the bummer about this is there are lots of people in this country who send money to basically keep their relatives in all these countries that people flee from to come to the United States because they value liberty, unlike the people who live here. You know, they think liberty's a bad thing.
Yes.
But, you know, people come here, they swim, they crawl, they hide in cargo containers to get here. And when they get here, they scratch and claw and work 2 or 3 jobs. And then they basically use something very similar to Western Union to send their relatives back home money that makes a difference between food on the table, a roof over their head. But the government, in its infinite wisdom, has decided that must obviously be poor people sending poor people money, which is the 99% of this.
Yes.
Because otherwise, if you're rich, you do interbank transfers, or you use blockchain, or you ship oodles of cash. But these are people who need this to basically keep their loved ones alive, and the government's decided they need to track it because one of those $10 payments might pay the next drug cartel to ship in 1/100th of a millionth of an ounce of heroin. So it's the typical government thing, It's whatever people are doing, they want to watch it, and if it has some success, they want to stop it, and then they want to tax it, and then they want to throw people in jail. And it's a shame because it's really helpful. And if they use the standard, if you use like I don't want to say the name of the company, but if you go down and wire money somewhere, the fees are exorbitant, and they take a huge chunk out of it. And this is, basically really just focused on poor people. I mean, that's my read on it. I don't know when you looked at it, Leon, what do you think?
Well, my problem with all of this is the expansion of the program, as you just said, if you could call it a program.
Oh, the illegal program?
Yes, the illegal, unconstitutional program. It should be unconstitutional. But the point is, though, every time we see the government getting involved in these things, these are threats to our liberty. That's what this is. This is a threat to our liberty, because they are not only looking at some of the international transfers, they are also looking at domestic transfers, like transfer between me and you, if such a thing occurred. And the government keeps expanding, and our liberties keep being squeezed out. And we have seen too many government agencies getting involved in these sort of activities. Look at the FBI. I mean, the hands of the FBI is turning up in too many places. Dirty hands of the FBI are turning up in too many places. I mean, I'm not here to defend Donald Trump, but look at what they tried to do, Donald Trump, tried to do it with him since 2016, and still continuing today. These are the things that are concerning and should be concerning to all American citizens, that the government, the federal government in particular, the state government to some extent, especially here in California, too much of their powers are expanding into the area of abuse, and our liberties are being threatened day in, day out. And the other thing we should also talk about was the FBI and the Twitter files. It's the same kind of thing, right? The FBI went to Twitter and they decide what should be censored and what should not be. This is unbelievable. It's supposed to be a constitutional republic here with a First Amendment.
Yeah, and they claim, well, these are private companies, they can do what they want of their own free will. But when you have a government and politicians hammering at you continually, it's no longer of your own free will. It's pressure.
Exactly.
It's government pressure, and when they're not supposed to be able to do that. But what is the consequence? When our politicians pass laws that violate the Constitution, they pay no penalty.
Right.
If I park in front of my house because I refuse to get a parking permit to park in front of my house, I get a parking ticket. I get a parking ticket for parking in front of my house. So parking in front of my own house, I pay a higher penalty than these politicians pay for passing laws that get deemed unconstitutional.
Indeed.
You use that word permit.
Permit, yes,
So
exactly.
where in the Constitution, so I read something today, I hope it's not true, that more people look kindly in this country on the Communist Manifesto than they do in the Constitution of the United States. I hope that's wrong. I'll have to check the source after I get out of here. Where does it say anywhere that anybody in this country needs permission from the government to do anything? It basically says that all rights are owned by the people,
Yes.
not the federal government,
Yes.
and the ones that aren't spelled out, if they're not owned by the people, are basically protected by the state. It doesn't say you need anybody's permission to build a house, or permission to earn money, or permission to park in front of your own freaking house. So when they say permit, permit's an innocuous term, but what it means is that you don't have rights, and that you need to go to Big Brother and ask their permission to do normal, everyday things, and that's just wrong. And it's become so ingrained that we don't think how evil it is.
Exactly.
We need a permit, which is permission to do everything now.
And the thing about it, that what you just said about the retention of our rights, it's all spelled out in the 9th and the 10th Amendment. But it seems to like these things have become ineffective, almost useless. Nobody is paying attention to the fact that all rights are retained by us. Now we have to give up some so that we can have a country. But what we gave up is spelled out in the Constitution. We need to get back this federal government and the state government too, back into their constitutional roles, and stop getting outside their boundaries. Otherwise, you won't have a country anymore.
Agreed. As always, Leon, I think I always agree.
This actually brings up an interesting question. Recent events have renewed talk of reviving police reform legislation on Capitol Hill. Now, can you actually reform the police without reforming politicians, right? It's the politicians pass the laws. The police are the enforcement arm of the political class. That's literally the job. Police and politics and politicians, they all share the same root. And they all share the same root word. So can you actually reform police without reforming the politicians? And is there a dehumanizing effect of having an uncountable number of laws that continually increases? Is that dehumanizing effect actually part of the reason that we have so many cases of police abuse, where police are simply treating average citizens as non-humans?
Go ahead, John. John, no, go ahead.
Well, I think that the worm is turning a little bit on that, and I take the New York Times, and I take it just to see what the enemy's doing, and the idea of this peripheral, and they actually had an article about they didn't come out with it, of course, when Trump was accused of having nuclear launch codes in his house, which of course was a bunch of nonsense. But they asked this question: are there too many secrets and too many things classified as secret and top secret and all the rest of that? And of course there are. So the idea that there's all these laws out there that are really kind of opaque to us, all these rules and everything. I mean, there's cases of we could go on and on this, but the idea that eventually the idea that people in government can have qualified, or in the case of a prosecutor, district attorney, absolute immunity has to go. And unfortunately, neither side of the duopoly, the Republicans or the Democrats, are interested in getting rid of that. But until that goes, nothing else will matter, because the cops will do whatever they want almost all the time without any recourse because of qualified immunity, absolute immunity. And politicians have it even more. It's written into the law that they can do these crazy things like create fiat currency and drive the country into bankruptcy, and they don't ever have to face the firing squad. I'm not saying you need to shoot them, but that is evil on a level that is unconscionable. To actually debase a currency to where, they scream about an existential risk of global warming. The existential risk in this world is government, folks.
Yes.
And its tool of fiat currency. And all these rules and regulations and laws, I'm rambling, are a direct result of none of them being held accountable.
Yes, true.
They have to be held accountable. I absolutely agree with you.
I mean, reforming the police, I don't even know what that means, quite frankly, okay? I mean, it is true that there are cases where police officers could be trained and retrained, and there are cases where we should remove the bad apples from the police service, like those officers in Memphis who end up killing Tyree Nichols. It is true, all those things. But these politicians sit in wherever their state capital is, or in Washington, D.C., and they come up with all these bright ideas, most of which are not practical. Okay? They are not practical at all. So, in a sense, you're right, James, that we have to reform the politicians before we could reform the police. But there's a problem here with this whole police reform talk about how the media present things whenever there's a problem. Okay? Now, what Derek Chauvin was the guy who killed George Floyd. Okay? It was horrible, and he should be prosecuted, and he was, and he ended up in prison. These 5 officers who killed Tyree Nichols, they did something horrible also, and they should be prosecuted. And I have no problem with that, okay? I don't care about the race of the people, but the media always presents this thing as some race problem. They always do, okay? Oh, God, Derek Chauvin was white, and that's why he killed George Floyd. Now they come up now. It is because these police officers live in a white supremacy world. That's why they thought it was all right to kill a black man. This is a bunch of nonsense, a bunch of garbage.
It is nonsense to the nth degree.
To the nth degree. What I saw on both the videos, the Derek Chauvin video involving George Floyd and the Tyree Nichols video, I saw officers of the law acting under the color of authority, dehumanizing and taking the life of an American citizen. That's what I saw. I didn't care about the fact that who was black or who was white. I don't care. I don't give a crap about that. I don't want people doing that to other human beings. Not on my dime, quite frankly. Not on my dime. I don't want to see that. So the media presents these things as always a race problem. They always do, and this is a serious problem in our society. So one of the people, so sure, we should reform the politicians first, but the first thing we really need to do is to reform the media, if we could. You know, they work under the First Amendment, so that's a real problem there. But the media need reforming, they really do.
The media theoretically can be reformed by us turning them off, right?
Well, that's true.
That is the theoretical way to reform
have.
the media. Yeah.
And we have, case in point, CNN.
Yes.
I think 3 people watch CNN now, maybe, if you count the family members of the people that work there. Ray, you brought up a wonderful point about racism. And a U.S. congressman was talking about, he called the influx of undocumented immigrants across the border an invasion. And I don't know if I agree with him as a libertarian. I don't think we should have borders. But he was, and he's a black man. and he was, I don't know, pilloried because they said it was a racist statement. And he came out and said, hold on. Every time you people, and he just threw out the big you, want to get away with doing something stupid, you throw out the word racism.
Yes.
He says, I've been a black man my whole life.
Yes.
And I know what racism is. And keeping people from coming into this country isn't racism. I think it's wrong as a libertarian, but it was once again the racism card thrown down. And who it's thrown down by is not capitalists are colorblind, folks.
Exactly.
They only care.
They care
about
about green.
The color
They care
of
about
your
green.
money.
They care about green.
They care about the color of your money. Can you make the money?
Yes.
Can you buy products from them that make them money?
Yeah.
Can they sell you products that make them money? Can you be a great employee and add to their bottom line? They don't care. They wouldn't care if you were a lizard if you could do that. So instead of us thinking that governments are the good guys here, governments are the bad guys because they have a vested interest in promoting this racism nonsense.
Yes.
And putting everybody into little
boxes.
pegs and holes
Yes.
based on race so that they can keep us warring with each other.
Exactly.
Whereas capitalists, all they want to do is create wealth.
Yes. And
Right?
build the bottom line.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, well, I don't know if this next story is going to make you guys feel happy or sad, because this is an interesting.
If it's on our list, probably sad.
Well, 1/5 of Americans, so 20% of Americans, say government is our nation's top problem. Now, the question is 20% a large number or is it a small number? For us, it's too small of a number. But from a historical perspective, is 20%, is it large, small, or is it kind of about where it normally stays?
I wouldn't call it large, but I wouldn't call it small either, okay? And I think Ronald Reagan said it the best. He said government is not the solution, government is the problem, okay? The problem that we have too often in society, every time something happen, some big event occur, whether it was George Floyd's death, whether it's Tyree Nichols' death, we always hear someone calling for the government to do something. It's always the government do something. We have laws on the books, for crying out loud.
Don't need any more.
Yeah, do we need more? That's just the point. Do we need any more laws? We could prosecute those police officers who were involved in the death of George Floyd. Well, we prosecuted them, and we are going to prosecute those ones who were involved in the death of Tyree Nichols. Maybe we need to retrain some of the officers and this kind of stuff. But it's always the government need to do something. The government need to do something, and all that means is passing more laws. And God forbid we driving down the street, we don't even know what laws we are breaking. Sometimes what is it? 3 felonies a day.
3 felonies, and that was 15 years ago when that study was done.
Yeah,
Probably 3.5 by now.
But yeah. But the point is though, I can see why people are increasingly becoming frustrated with the number of laws that we have on the books and are really interfering with their normal functioning of their lives, as their lives as American citizens, where life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness supposed to be paramount. Okay, and this is why I have always advocated that all laws should have a date of effect and a date of sunshine. All laws should have that. Okay, the Constitution is everlasting. That is, it was there, and that's that from the inception of the United States, and it shall remain there until the country dies, and I hope it never dies. But all laws, all statutory laws, should have a date of effect and a date of sunshine. And then if it's so nice and wonderful, let them pass it again.
And let me add, not only laws, but this country is now run by regulation. Regulations aren't passed by people that we vote for. They're created by unassailable bureaucrats in their ivory towers.
Yes.
Let's do the sunshine law and regulations as well. I absolutely agree.
Well, yeah, true. And well, my intent was that any regulation that's associated with the law should also die.
If it has, in all these regulations, somehow there are criminal penalties attached to them.
Yes.
I mean, if you kill a wildebeest, that's in Africa. If you kill some animal here on your farm that's on the endangered species list, the Environmental Protection Agency and all the rest of that, yes, that was created by law, but all the underlying regulations they put forth have the power of law.
Yes.
And bureaucrats created all of those.
Right.
They put all those rules in place. You can go to prison, you can face fines, you can lose your land, your property, your job, all the rest of that, because some bureaucrat somewhere put a regulation together. And those are the ones, let's get rid of those.
There we go.
Yeah.
And there's an
Okay.
uncountable number of those. It's literally an uncountable number, but yet we as average citizens are held to those standards. It's literally impossible for us to know every law. Even if we tried.
Yes.
Even if we tried to know every law.
And
it's
ignorance of the
literally
law
impossible.
is no excuse.
It's no excuse.
There's no
Exactly.
excuse. But it's also impossible to not be anything but ignorant of the law. And
Well,
yet,
how could you? How could you possibly know all the laws or know what you're breaking and what you're not breaking? I mean, I've told you the story about me and the IRS. Last year, on my tax, I checked a box incorrectly, and I ended up having a $2,000 tax bill. I'm not joking about this. Just because I had a wrong check on a box, I misunderstood a question that was asked.
yeah, and rather than
I'm
sending,
supposed to be an educated man.
and rather than sending, hey, is this correct? Can you fix this? We're all good.
Yeah.
They're just interested in their money.
Unbelievable.
You know, they complain about other people's greed, but there's nobody greedier than the tax collector. And this goes back through all of history. There is not a greedier organization than the person who's collecting taxes. And so, but talking about taxes, Florida has shown California how to build a railroad. A private company has built a high-speed railroad down in Florida, while California is still here, can't even get their high-speed railroad partially built.
You're trained to nowhere.
You know, and these guys in their choo-choos, you know, the politicians and their trains. I don't understand what this love affair with this Victorian, ancient Victorian technology is putting on the least flexible, most expensive transportation we have, and that's what the politicians want. I don't understand it, but that is what it is.
Well, because if you ever break into their house, you'll see them in their little striped caps playing with their choo-choo train sets. Yeah, and that's it. Well, trains are wonderful things, and in places where they have, like Florida, they had a company that had basically a successful passenger route between one city and another. And they said, well, we think that we can make it even more successful by making it faster and better and putting better trains on it, and more people will come because you don't want to drive up and down Florida.
Yes.
Why don't you just get into our nice, beautiful train? And so they built this thing, and it's not done yet. The last leg of it's going to be done next year or the year 24 or 23, I forget.
No, they
This is
said 23.
23.
Yes.
So they built it for 1/56th the cost of the stated now $100 billion cost of the train to nowhere. And how many of us in this room, by show of hands, raise your hands if you think it will actually come into that now expanded from $18 billion to $100 billion price. Raise your hands if you think they'll actually hit the $100 billion or if it'll be over it. Nobody in this room raised
Look
their
around
hands.
and see if there's anybody raising their
So,
hands, John.
Anybody at home raising your hands?
So the
Somehow, I
idea
doubt
that the private company has to get customers, they have to keep customers, and they have to pay their bills,
Yes.
and they don't get to print money, and they have to show a profit, and the government has to do none of that. The government's goal here is, I have no idea what their goal is, quite frankly. Creating jobs. How do you create jobs? By taking money from capitalists through taxes who actually know how to create jobs, and giving it to politicians, minions in bureaucracies who don't know how to do anything other than give politicians money around election time.
They're giving jobs to their friends.
They give jobs to their friends.
That's what the jobs they're creating.
Oh,
is
yeah.
jobs
Yeah.
for their
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but
Once again, Florida leads the way. Sorry, Governor Newsom, every time you try to compare California to Florida or Texas or Zimbabwe pretty soon,
yes.
it doesn't compare favorably. No.
This article that was attached to this particular topic highlights the difference between doing things in the private market versus doing things by government fiat. I mean, the government always fails. Seriously, look around us. All the failures we see in society will go on for a long time. It will be some government intervention into something in our lives. Look at the inner cities of America. That's all government failure, all of it, especially the schools, which don't start me on that, please.
Okay, so we'll mark that off. Make sure we can do that.
No, we got to talk about schools because that's a wonderful topic. We're going to talk about schools.
Yes.
We only got 3
Please.
minutes, guys. We can't talk about schools. There's no time.
Government
can't.
failure. Government failure is destroying our society, and we really and truly got to do something about the expansion of government, because Florida is showing us what the private sector can do compared to the government and its ineptness.
Well, we can segue into this. Can I try to do it in 3 minutes?
Go for it, John.
So,
knock yourself out.
There is a black woman politician. Her name is Winsome Sears. Right?
She's the lieutenant governor of Virginia.
She's what?
The lieutenant governor of Virginia.
She says that school choice is the new Brown versus the Board of Education fight.
Yes.
Because the only way kids are going to get an education in this country is if the money follows the student and doesn't go into the maw of teachers' unions and bureaucrats.
Yes.
And I think that's a wonderful thing, because any survey that you do anywhere, the people that want school choice are minorities, people of color throughout the country. You can't say rich people. Rich people are already sending their kids to private schools.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
there is some hope, and if it starts there, maybe it'll grow.
Well, Arizona did have a universal school choice. They passed it sometime late last year. But you know what's going on right now? The
They're
Democratic governor
Is trying to get rid of
is
it.
trying to get rid of it.
Of course.
But we've seen some states moving in this direction. West Virginia is doing some things in that direction.
California?
California, oh God, please. Iowa, the governor there just signed into law a universal school choice where they're going to have educational savings accounts. I mean, this school choice movement where you're going to fund students and not systems, I think is going to be the next big issue. And I love it. I really do.
Well, I like to point
Absolutely.
out that in the last 30 years, we've seen an explosion in the size of and scope of government.
Yeah.
And we've also seen this explosion in what the left calls income inequality. You know, the income inequality has been right alongside the explosion of size and scope of government. And, you know, if you can't make that connection, then, you know, correlation, causation, and all that. But if you can't bring yourself up to at least explore the idea that the size and scope of government has also played a role in the economic disadvantages of the poor people, then you're not
Absolutely.
being intellectually honest.
I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week. Good night, and please remember to love everybody. Thank you.